Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to continue our scholarly examination of every issue of Epic Illustrated. We're up to number 19, August 1983. We have a contributor who has never been in Epic before, Jim Steranko, doing this cover. They finally got Steranko to do something for Epic. I think this is all he ever did for Epic. Kind of sad that in the 80s, just Steranko didn't quite have his amazing facility. This is pretty interesting. It's not bad. But just look at this background and these skeletons here. Old Steranko never would have let that go. He would have had like 20 other interesting design motifs and whatever. But, I don't know, I like the way the guy's standing. It's a very dynamic pose. And it's nice to see Steranko. But he's seen better days. Contents page. Man, look at the art on this TSR game, Star Frontiers. This is just repulsive. And I think they had money at this point. Oh, it's Jeff Easley. In fact, he did a story for Epic. And I didn't like it either. So I guess he's moving on up in the world. Even though not with his talent. His talent isn't moving up. Overview. And here we got the next chapter of Generation Zero by Pepe Moreno. And once again, beautiful art. Not much of a story. And I gotta say, the more I read these, the more like these characters are just vacuous. They're not very good characters. Not very good dialogue. It's almost like written for like a 14-year-old audience. Like this could be a young adult thing. But man, really nice art. I like Pepe Moreno's European style. I mean, that's great. So now they're in the Middle East. And the Middle East is just, it's a shithole. It's a hellhole. And they crash land because they're caught in a sandstorm. They need oil. They can fix it, but they just don't have enough fuel. So they round or come up on top of a dune and they see this. Because this is like the bottom of the Dead Sea, which is totally gone now. So this tanker had sunk to the bottom, but then all the water dried. So these guys have built a base around it. And they look very militaristic. These guys are checking them out and like, uh-oh. These are the guys we didn't want to run into, guys like this. Because so far they've been lucky. They ran into that nice sea haven place where everyone's cool. But these guys are just, they got slave labor. This is just like the worst parts of the old world. That's pretty impressive, though. And Pepe Moreno can draw. So they do some elaborate scheme to infiltrate into the camp. They get these guards. They kick them out of their own vehicle, and they take their uniforms and sneak in. And they do so successfully. Within the camp, we see this guy, the commander. He's the guy you saw in that front piece. Kind of looks like he's kind of got this Darth Vader vibe going on. And he's called the Commander. That's all he's known as. No name. So they escape successfully. But then those guys are hot in their heels. They send all these tanks after them. And luckily they have enough gas now, of fuel, and they take to the skies. Out of the range of the tanks. But these guys have got jet fighters too. These desert dwellers. And they're chasing them. But Juan Falcon is a very crafty flyer. And he basically leads the guy to crash right into the ship. Some tricky flying. And it blows up the majority of the ship. It hits the fuel reserves. And so they leave. The commander is down on the ground shaking his fist in anger. It's like, I'll get you, Duke boys. And now they realize that maybe we shouldn't. They're having doubts about going around the world. Because they realize that they could have led these guys back to Sea Haven if they captured them and tortured them, or maybe found evidence on the ship of where they came from. Here we have a reappearance of Kent Williams. He got Joe Duffy, the associate editor, to write for him. And this isn't much of a story, but it's some very pretty Kent Williams art. This is young Kent Williams, still drawing pretty straight, you know, not as abstract as he would become. Basically, this woman is captured in this tower. Her lover, who's the powerful sea lords, have separated them, but he won't accept their judgment, and he keeps trying to get to her, even though dragons bar his way. And she's watching him battle this dragon, and the dragon surfaces alone. Her lover is nowhere to be seen. So she empties her cup to the memory of my love, and think of what might have been, and I weep, until she hears a footfall on the rock outside, and it's her lover, Targan. And he says, "Marjorie, why, my heart, why do you weep?" She says, "I drank from a poison cup." So very Romeo and Juliet. Sorry, I forgot to tell you, this story is called is it Marjorie? Marjorie. Not margarine. Marjorie. Whatever. But it's nice art. Here, a few issues ago, Scott Hampton debuted in Epic. And now his brother, Bo Hampton. I think this is one of his earliest works before he started doing all that stuff for Eclipse Comics. And mostly Eclipse Comics, yeah. So this is an adaptation of Jabberwocky, Lewis Carroll's famous poem. And it's got this really nice cartoony style. Kind of reminds me of Dragon's Lair, that video game. But then again, because that reminds me of classic Disney animation. So it almost looks like the coloring. It almost looks like animation cells. It's very attractive, this artwork. I like it. And it's just a typical tale of Jabberwocky. If he slays the Jabberwocky, who's his dragon, basically, he will get the princess and get much treasure. So this guy, like, totally is just so scared of the Jabberwocky. He's just laying down with his sword up, just like, oh, he's gonna kill me. I can't even face him. But the Jabberwocky trips on this log and falls right in his sword. So inadvertently, he slays the dragon, chops off the head and brings it to the castle. Man, I like this stuff. And the king says, here's your reward. Behind this door is my beautiful daughter. And he opens the door. And this is the princess. So he rides out on his horse as fast as he can. And then, a little later on, we see another young knight. And he sees the same sign that the first knight saw, that promises the hand of the princess. But now the Jabberwocky is scratched out and Bandersnatch is put in. So basically, it's not like the king really wants these monsters disposed of. He just wants to get rid of his daughter. He wants to pawn his daughter off. I forgot to say, too, I assume it's to help with the writing. It says Garrett Lavin. Bo Hampton and Garrett Lavin. I've never heard of that guy. For some reason, I assume he's just helping him with writing, but maybe they're an art team. I don't know. I kind of doubt it because they don't mention it in the overview. We have a nice little article about Von Bodé with some rare art from him, some random sketches. It's always nice to see Von Bodé. Such a great style. And we've talked about Bodé before on the channel, but This kind of reiterates his life. No one really cartooned like him. It's very unique. Undergrounds, National Lampoon, men's magazines. He did a lot. There's the man. So that's kind of very interesting. I guess in the early 70s, let me flip this around. Let's see if, yeah, in the early 70s, an actual syndicate, a comic strip syndicate, was discussing with Von Bodé the possibility of developing a strip around Cheech Wizard. They were going to call it Tales of the Yellow Hat. And he did a lot of preliminary work, Von Bodé. Worked up a bunch of strips in pencil for him. But after a while, he just says he abandoned it. He realized that in toning down the strip enough to make it palatable to the public, he would have had to sacrifice the very elements that made Cheech Wizard special. The randiness and the social satire. So his son, Mark Bodé, he found penciled and written sample strips. And what he did was he lettered them, inked them, and colored them. And we get to see them now, which is kind of nice. It's pretty interesting. Even clean Bodé is amazing. This is totally G-rated. This could have been in your newspaper. And he makes this whole cast of characters. Poppy the Waif, the Peeper Brothers. They're like the Cats and Jammer kids. They always get in trouble. The Lost Poot, who's this weird creature. Dickie Doo, the orphan elf. And Jug, who's Cheech Wizard's main apprentice. And pretty much takes care of everyone here. And they're very typical, just cute little comic strips, that you see in the paper. Just, little gags. Some of them are pretty good, though. It's better than most comic strips in the paper. Of course, the art's amazing. I think if this ran, if Von Bodé could have put up with this shit, I think this could have taken off in the 70s. Just his cartooning is so appealing, as you can see. And then after the first few strips, Cheech Wizard, or they call him the Yellow Hat, returns. More, just giving you, I want you to be able to see this great cartooning. Yeah, Mark Bodé does a very fine job of, inking this stuff and coloring it. This looks pretty nice. I think this guy could have been a plush doll. Very cute. This is the kind of humor it was. It's like, Dickie Doo, how do you expect to catch a fish? You don't have a hook or bait on that stupid fish line. I got one, Yellow Hat. And he says a manic depressive catfish committing suicide doesn't count. There's some more. Yeah, they're just kind of silly little jokes. And here he has another reiteration of the cast. I guess this was another presentation strip. Just really nice looking. I wish that was a comic strip. Then again, if it cut, I don't want to cut it into Von Bodé's real underground stuff. This is a very silly story. I don't know if you guys remember Jean Bellow. About 12 issues ago, he had a beautifully drawn, it looked like Mobius, Kaza, very great European art. But all to the service of a dumb joke at the end. And this is another one. The art's not as good. This is a more stripped down style. But you see this weird cell or cavern, and they throw down a mattress, a blue, it looks like a futon. And then this warrior gets thrown down on it. And he looks up, he's waiting. And then a woman gets thrown down on it. And then all of this bedding. So they figure, why not? And they start making love, making whoopee. I'm sorry, before I continue, story J.H. Rowan. So, and then another futon mattress, blue futon, falls down on it. Because it's a sandwich. This giant was just making a sandwich by throwing down the stuff on this blue bread, I guess. So that's it. I don't know why I actually chuckled when I read this. It's a really dumb gag. It's very silly, but I was actually pleasantly surprised. Maybe it shows my intelligence level. Here we have the Cygnus portfolios. This is pretty much an ad for these portfolios, but even though it's an ad, we get to see all this beautiful art we might have not gotten to see unless we shelled out a lot of money for these portfolios. Here's Alan Lee, the fantasy artist. He did that fairies book in the 70s. Very popular. Jeffrey Jones, who's now known as Jeffrey Catherine Jones. Or is it Catherine Jeffrey Jones? I can't remember. Oh yeah, I forgot to say that these portfolios, this company came into existence just because they wanted to be able to duplicate us with the highest fidelity pencil work. Because that's always been a challenge for printers. Original sketches, trying to print that, you always lose something. But these guys, I guess, figured out some great engraving technique so they could duplicate pencil art better. Supposedly. I'll take their word for it. I don't know. It looks nice. There's Robert Gould. He did a lot of Elric art. Very famous fantasy painter. He's in believe he's in some Star Reach issues. He did little comics here and there. Barry Windsor Smith, familiar to epic readers. There's some beautiful stuff. That's some really nice stuff. And one more from Alan Lee. Pretty beautiful. Great illustration. Now we got Chapter 5 of Last of the Dragons. This one, not much happens. I mean, stuff happens, but it's like told in this weird recap style. So the dragons and the evil priests are fully ensconced in the New World. And they've just been raiding Indian villages, killing women, children. They're really evil, these priests. Of course, their dragons help. They've got their pet dragon, so nobody can stand in their way. But they're pretty formidable fighters themselves, so... I mean, they're just massacring people. Massacring these Native American tribes left and right. One day, Tanaka, is that his name? I forget his name. Whatever, the ninja, our hero. He's going through the woods, and an Indian takes a pot shot at him with his gun. So he totally makes a false trail so they can't trail him. Jumps up in a tree, puts on his devil mask, hoping to scare them. And he attacks them. But he doesn't want to kill them. And he basically wants to ally with them. And he does this tricky way of walking. So his trail looks like it's 3 different people. The Indians are all confused. They're like, what the hell? What, is he flying now? Because at one point he takes to the trees, so his trail just disappears. So then he attacks them again, and then finally he subdues them enough to be like, hey, do you know English? Because if you remember, his dad was English. He's half Japanese, half English. So the Indians say, yeah, okay, your enemy's our enemy. Let's join forces. They find another slaughtered village. And amongst this slaughtered village is our old samurai friend, Masanobu. And he is just so bummed that he went along on this ship with those evil priests. They kind of tricked him. They lied to him. And now he knows that they're his enemy, and he's going to stop them. But to Tanaka, he's his greatest enemy. This is the guy who killed his girlfriend. Well, I mean, technically she killed herself, but he was the one who fought her. So he says, we meet again. You'll be joining your ancestors soon. And Masanobu says, wait, we have much to discuss. And Tanaka says, we have nothing to discuss. you know, draw your blade or die empty-handed. So next issue, we shall see what happens. So here we have the first chapter of a new John J. Muth serial. This is so very pretentious. Beautiful art, as you can see. It's all like kind of penciled and charcoal, black and white. This whole thing right here is just pretentious foo-for-ah. Kind of interesting, though. I don't know. Sometimes I like pretentious, or at least it's interesting. And who knows, maybe it'll pay off. But reading this cold, it's just like, what the hell are you doing? This is so pompous and pretentious. The Mythology of an Abandoned City. The first chapter is called Sleepwalker. And it's very like a Samuel Beckett play or something. You know, it's very, or like some movie of the short film from the French New Wave. Very symbolic and, you know, very odd. So we see this scared guy. He's got this big ray gun. And he's looking out the window. And he's got this woman's hanging out with him. And he sees this guy come down the street. This kind of like, what do you call those guys? Like, I guess they're kind of like clowns. You know, the middle-aged clowns used to dress up like that. So he leaves the apartment where he's at. And he's running down the street. And he shoots at the robed figure. Doesn't kill him. And then we don't exactly know how, that guy with the gun is now collapsed on the ground. And the robed figure walks off with the woman. And I believe she even somehow, she's changed her clothes since that first page. She says, that boy back there, he knew you, didn't he? I could tell. Who are you? So it almost looks like he has no arms, but his hands kind of float around him. She says, will you kill me if I try to run away? And then she sees something. She says, oh my God. And we see that little guy behind her smile, the robed guy. I can't make heads or tails of this. Perhaps, maybe it'll explain itself. I have a feeling it won't. Yeah, all of a sudden we see a triplane in the distance. So, I gotta say, I'm intrigued. I want to see how he, maybe he will somehow explain what the hell this is. And God, the art's amazing. Even a young John J. Muth, he already had his shit together. Here we get a nice Rick Veitch story. It's not so nice, though. It's pretty silly. Very goofy. It's called Bossy. And we see this bossy woman and her centaur boyfriend. And he's just totally gaga over her. And she's just a cruel, mean girlfriend. She's yanking on his hair. She's just like insulting him. She's like, oh, I don't know why I ever took up with you. And she orders him around. She's like, go get me a bouquet of flowers. He's like, yes, my sweet. And he's totally blinded by love. He's just like, she loves me not. He's got a big smile on his face, even though he's in this totally abusive relationship. And then while he hears his girlfriend talking to someone, and it's a minotaur. And she's so flirting with him. Like, it's beyond flirting. She's just like, let's fuck. And the centaur comes running out. He's like, unhand her. And she's so mean. She's just like, please get rid of this idiot for me. And the Minotaur totally beats the crap out of him. And the girlfriend, all she can say is, my hero. She doesn't even like say, oh, I'm sorry. Are you okay, honey? And she says, oh, you're so big and strong. I hope I can make you happy. And the Minotaur says, not to worry. You make fine addition. Yes, to harem. Come on, me introduce you to head wife. It's cows. His harem's a bunch of cows. Since, of course, a Minotaur is half bull. So she's going to be just one of his harem. So silly. But just really nice Rick Veitch storytelling and art. This is the famous old artist, Pat Boyette. This guy's been, I think, drawing since the 50s. And who knew he could paint this well? It's all him. It's amazing, beautiful painting. I don't know if it's like oil paint. It's really fancy and nice. So we see this spaceship, and it's got one inhabitant, General G.M. McCork. And this guy's like a battered old warrior. He's a survivor. But he's slowly going mad from loneliness. There's no one on the ship. He's talking to his own reflection. He has these horrible dreams about when the Earth died. So I guess the Earth, you know, like many a science fiction tale, we fuck up. We blow up the Earth. World War III starts. Nuclear bombs start flying. They picked 500 people, the best of the best, to get on this spaceship. And they were going to head to the stars and hopefully find a new planet to be home. He was picked as the supreme authority, the captain, General McCork, because he was just tough as nails, always was a survivor. So the trip is very perilous. Asteroids hit the ship. They lose people. They lose even more people because McCork is such a disciplinarian. You know, if something bad happens, he says, someone's to blame, and he jettisons them from the ship to die. So you'd think if you only have 500 people left on Earth, or from Earth, you wouldn't kill them so quickly. But this guy's an idiot. They land on one planet. They found one planet that seems really nice and hospitable, but it's filled with these like just violent creatures who kill all the landing party, almost everyone in the landing party, savagely. They find another planet that seems promising, and it's actually really promising. It's like this, almost like paradise. It looks like Mount Olympus. All these beautiful women are there, and they sleep with the guys, the landing party, because they ignored McCork. McCork's like, hey, don't go down until we do some tests. And they're like, shut up, old man. You can stay up in your spaceship. So, of course, they get this basically cosmic VD from these girls, and within a few hours or a few days, the lives of 95% of the Last Hope colony were lost. They brought a plague back to the ship. Their skin just erupting in boils. This is really interesting, the technique he uses here. It almost looks like airbrush, photorealistic. I kind of have, for some reason, maybe I'm just judging him by his age, I don't think he was an airbrush guy. But just whatever technique he used, that looks really amazing. So, and as they ran into an acid cloud, that killed the last few people after that incident. So it's been 5 years now. He's been totally alone, and he just wants to end it. He can't stand it anymore. So he figures, I'm going to push the ship to light speed, and that'll be a nice way to commit suicide. Because you just turn into pure energy, supposedly. You know, it's a theoretical science. Nobody really ever knew. But unfortunately, it's almost like the opposite of what we wanted to happen. He doesn't die. And then he even shoots himself in the gut. And he doesn't die. Because he's a citizen of infinity now. There's no beginning, no end, no life, no death. So he's stuck in this hell for all eternity. What a dumbass. I also just point out, though, Pat Boyette does this amazingly weird, I don't know, chalky style crayons to show the infinity realm. Kind of interesting. Definitely looks otherworldly. And we still got Yukon Jack around to keep us company. I wish I had a bottle of that right now. So there you go, epic number 19, August 1983. Pretty good issue, but not one of my favorites. They were past few issues of Epic have been kicking ass, I thought. This one's a little dip, but who knows? Next issue it'll be a whole different card hand, so it might be great. But thanks for watching, and I hope to see you soon here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.